I never planned to show them the ring. Honestly, I didn't even want to visit that night, but my mother had called 3 times, her voice sweet in that fake way she used whenever she needed something, or when she wanted to remind me how disappointed she was in my life. "Just dinner," she said. "Your father wants to see you." That should have been my warning. I stood in my childhood bedroom, staring at my reflection while the house echoed with familiar sounds, the ticking clock in the hallway, the TV murmuring downstairs, my father's voice laughing too loudly at his own jokes. Everything felt frozen in time, except me. I slipped the ring back onto my finger. It wasn't flashy, no giant diamond, no gold band thick enough to scream money, just a simple, elegant ring with a small stone that caught the light softly, like it didn't need to shout to be seen. Unlike me. I went downstairs, already bracing myself. Dinner started the way it always did. My father barely looked up from his plate. My mother asked surface-level questions: work, rent, still living alone, each one loaded with judgment. Then my father noticed the ring. He squinted at my hand like he was inspecting something broken. "What's that?" he asked, pointing with his fork. I hesitated just for a second. "It's an engagement ring." The silence that followed was sharp. Then he laughed, not a chuckle, not surprise, a full, mocking laugh that bounced off the walls and sank straight into my chest. "Engagement?" he repeated. "Who would ever marry you?" My mother didn't stop him. She just looked down at her plate, lips pressed together like she agreed but didn't want to say it out loud. I felt my face burn. My father leaned back in his chair, eyes flicking to the ring again. "Let me guess. Some unemployed dreamer? Another mistake you'll cry about later?" I opened my mouth, then closed it, because no matter what I said, it wouldn't matter. This was the man who had told relatives I was confused when I chose my own career path, the man who compared me to my cousins at every family gathering, the man who once said I was too much effort for too little return, and now, apparently, too unlovable to be chosen. "Take it off," he said suddenly. "It's embarrassing." That's when something inside me cracked. "I'm not taking it off," I said quietly. He slammed his hand on the table. "Don't raise your voice at me in my own house." "I didn't," I whispered. My mother finally looked up. "Why would someone propose without even meeting us?" she asked. "What kind of man hides?" I swallowed hard. "He's not hiding, he's just busy." My father snorted. "Convenient, probably imaginary." That's when the doorbell rang. Sharp, sudden, perfectly timed. We all froze. My father frowned. Who would come now? I stood up slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I think," I said, my voice trembling but steady, "that might be him." My father laughed again. "Sure, let's see." I walked toward the door, every step heavy with years of doubt, humiliation, and swallowed pride. And when I reached for the handle, I had no idea that once I opened it, nothing in this house would ever be the same again. I opened the door and saw my father's smile vanish in a way I had waited my whole life to see. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed wasn't his face. It was his posture, straight, calm, unshaken, like a man who had already lived through storms and wasn't afraid of another one brewing behind me. Then I looked up, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father speechless. My fiancé stood there, holding a small paper bag, dessert, I realized later, dressed simply but sharply. No flashy watch, no loud confidence, just quiet certainty, the kind my father had always claimed I'd never attract. "Good evening," he said politely. "I'm sorry I'm late." My father's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're here for her?" he asked, pointing at me like I was a questionable object. My fiancé smiled, warm, controlled. "Yes, sir, I'm here for your daughter." Something twisted in my chest. No one had ever said those words about me with pride. My mother stood up slowly, eyes darting between us. "We weren't expecting company." "I understand, but I didn't want to delay meeting you any longer." My father scoffed. "Meeting us? You propose without asking permission, then show up unannounced?" My fiancé didn't flinch. "I proposed because I love her. I came because she matters." The room went quiet again, thicker this time. My father looked him up and down. "And what exactly do you do?" There it was, the question that decided worth in this house. "I work in strategic development," he said evenly. My father laughed. "That's not an answer." "It is, just not one meant to impress." I bit my lip to stop myself from smiling. My father crossed his arms. "So you expect us to believe you're serious about marriage?" "Yes," he said. "I've been serious for a long time." My mother finally found her voice. "And you know who she is, her situation?" I stiffened. My fiancé turned to me for a second, not to ask permission, but to anchor himself, then looked back at her. "I know exactly who she is. That's why I chose her." Chose. Not settled, not tolerated. Chose. My father waved his hand dismissively. "Love doesn't pay bills. What can you offer her?" My fiancé stepped inside the house, setting the dessert on the table like he belonged there. "Respect," he said. "Stability. Partnership." My father snorted. "Anyone can say words." My fiancé nodded. "Then let me show you something." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. I felt my stomach drop. He handed it to my father. "What's this?" my father asked. "An offer letter for a position I accepted last week. We'll be relocating soon." My father scanned the page. His face changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, like reality seeping through cracks he didn't know existed. My mother leaned over. Her eyes widened. "That can't be right," she whispered. My father read it again, and again. Then he looked up at me, not with anger this time, but confusion. You knew about this?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes." "You didn't tell us," my mother said, hurt creeping into her voice. I exhaled. "You never asked." Silence. For years I'd been the disappointment, the weak link, the one who needed guidance, and suddenly I wasn't. But my father wasn't done yet. He folded the paper carefully, placed it on the table, and looked straight at my fiancé. "Money doesn't change everything," he said coldly. "You still don't know what kind of family you're marrying." My fiancé met his gaze. "I know enough," he said, "and I'm still here." That's when my father said something that made me realize this wasn't about my fiancé at all. It never had been. My father's jaw tightened the way it always did when he felt cornered. "You don't know this family," he repeated, more to himself than to my fiancé, "and neither does she, apparently." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What does that mean?" I asked. He ignored me and turned to my mother. "Should we tell them now or later?" My stomach dropped. My mother's eyes filled with panic. "This isn't the time." My fiancé glanced at me, concern flashing across his face. "What are they talking about?" I swallowed. "I don't know." But deep down, I did. Every family has secrets. Mine just wore silence like armor. My father sighed dramatically and sat down as if he were the victim of some great burden. "Since you're planning to tie yourself to this family," he said to my fiancé, "you deserve to know who she really is." I clenched my fists. "Stop." He raised a hand. "You've embarrassed us enough already. Let me finish." My mother looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see disappointment. I saw guilt. "She wasn't planned," my father said casually. "That's the truth." The words hit me like a slap. "We were barely getting by," he continued. "Your mother wanted to keep you. I didn't." My chest tightened. I'd always suspected, but hearing it out loud felt like standing naked in front of strangers. "You were a mistake," he said,
and mistakes come with consequences. My fiancé took a step forward. That's enough. But my father wasn't done. We stayed, he pointed at himself and my mother. We sacrificed, and what did we get? A daughter who refuses to listen, refuses to follow tradition, refuses to marry properly. I laughed then, a short, broken sound that surprised even me. So that's it, I asked. That's why you've treated me like a burden my whole life? My mother finally spoke. We did what we thought was best. No, I snapped. You did what was easiest. Silence fell again. My fiancé stood beside me, his presence steady, grounding. You don't get to rewrite her existence as a favor, he said calmly. She doesn't owe you gratitude for surviving. My father stood abruptly. This is my house, and that's your only power, my fiancé replied. That's when my father turned to me, eyes sharp. You think this man will stay once he sees how damaged you are? Something inside me shattered. Before I could speak, my fiancé reached for my hand. She's not damaged, he said firmly. She's resilient, and every scar she has comes from people who were supposed to protect her. My mother started crying. You don't understand what it was like, she whispered. No, I said quietly. You don't understand what it was like for me. I felt years of silence rising in my throat. I learned early not to ask for help, not to dream too loudly, not to expect love without conditions. My father scoffed. And now you think a ring fixes all that? I looked at my hand, then at my fiancé, then at the man who had spent my life shrinking me. No, I said, but it showed me I never needed your permission to be chosen. My father laughed bitterly. You'll come crawling back. My fiancé squeezed my hand. We won't. That's when my mother whispered something that changed everything. There's more, she said softly. To someone else. I turned to her, heart racing. What do you mean, more? I thought I knew every painful truth about my family, but what my mother revealed next made the ring on my finger feel heavier than ever.
My mother's hands were shaking. She wouldn't look at me, not at first. There's more, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. My father turned sharply. This is not necessary. She flinched, but for once she didn't back down. She deserves to know, my mother said. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. Know what? I asked. She finally met my eyes, and in that moment, I understood something terrifying. This wasn't new. This was something she had been carrying for years. When you were born, she began, your grandmother left you something. I frowned. What are you talking about? My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough. But my fiancé stepped forward, calm but firm. Let her speak. My mother swallowed. Your grandmother, my mother, set up a trust in your name. She believed we didn't treat you fairly. The room tilted. A trust? I repeated. That's not possible. My father laughed sharply. Don't be dramatic. My mother ignored him. It was meant for your future. Education, independence, a safety net. My chest tightened. Where is it? Silence. Long, loud, damning silence. My fiancé's grip on my hand tightened. My father exhaled slowly. We used it. The words barely registered. You what? I whispered. We needed it, he said. Family expenses, your upbringing. Everything costs money. My mother started crying. We told ourselves it was still for you, just indirectly. I felt numb. How much? I asked. My father shrugged. Enough. I laughed softly, a hollow sound. You mocked my ring, my choices, my worth, while standing on money meant for me? My father's face hardened. You lived under our roof. So that was the price? My future? My fiancé spoke, his voice dangerously calm. Was the trust legally transferred? My father glared. This is family business. No, my fiancé said. This is financial abuse. That word landed hard. My mother gasped. My father stood. Get out. I looked at him. You stole from me. He scoffed. We raised you. You controlled me, and you still would if you could. My mother sobbed openly now. We were afraid you'd leave. I nodded slowly. So you made sure I couldn't. The realization hurt more than the theft. They hadn't just taken money, they'd taken options, dreams, escape. My fiancé turned to me. We can address this, legally. My father laughed. You think she'd sue her own parents? I met his eyes. You think I owe you silence? For the first time, he looked unsure. I reached for my coat. This ring, I said, holding up my hand, isn't just about love. It's about choice, something you never gave me. My mother reached for me. Please don't go like this. I stepped back. I've been going like this my whole life, alone. We walked toward the door, but just before we stepped outside, my father said something that stopped me cold. If you leave, he said, don't expect to come back. You're not welcome here anymore. I turned around slowly, and I smiled. Good, I said. Neither is your hold over me. I thought walking out was the end, but I didn't know my father had one final move planned, and it was already in motion.
We were halfway down the driveway when my phone started ringing. I almost ignored it. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, the night air too cold against skin that still burned from everything I'd heard inside that house. But when I looked at the screen, my breath caught. It was my aunt, my father's older sister. She never called me. I answered. Are you safe? She asked immediately. That single question unraveled me. Yes, I said, my voice cracking. Why? She exhaled sharply. Good, then listen carefully. Your father doesn't know I'm calling. I glanced back at the house. The lights were still on. What's going on? I asked. There's a reason your mother finally told you about the trust, my aunt said, and it's not guilt. My stomach dropped. My fiancé stopped walking, his eyes fixed on my face. What do you mean? I whispered. He's being audited, she said. Not officially yet, but soon. The world seemed to slow. For what? Misuse of funds, she replied, including accounts linked to your name. My knees went weak. My fiancé steadied me. I warned him years ago, my aunt continued, but he thought family silence would protect him. I swallowed hard. You knew? Yes, she said softly, and I'm sorry I waited this long. I closed my eyes. All those years of control, of criticism, of fear disguised as parenting, it hadn't been about tradition. It had been about leverage. He's planning to move money tonight, my aunt said. I saw the emails. He thinks if he cuts you off publicly, you won't fight back. My fiancé spoke quietly. That's a mistake. My aunt paused. Is that him? Yes, I said. Good. Then you should know. Your grandmother left copies, legal ones. The trust was never fully dissolved. My heart slammed against my ribs. What? She accessed it illegally, she said. And that ring he mocked? I frowned. What about it? She knew you'd need courage more than cash, my aunt said. That trust was structured to activate if you were engaged or married. She believed commitment would push you to claim your life. Tears streamed down my face. All this time, my grandmother had seen me. I'll send everything, my aunt said. Documents, statements, emails. The call ended. I stared at my phone, stunned. Behind us, the front door creaked open. My father stepped onto the porch. Who are you talking to? He called. I turned slowly. To someone who tells the truth, I said. He He narrowed his eyes. "You think you've won something?" "No," I replied calmly. "I think I've survived something." My fiancé stepped forward. "We'll be in touch through our lawyer." My father laughed loudly. "You don't scare me." But I saw it then. Fear. Real, unmasked fear. Because for the first time, I wasn't begging. I wasn't explaining. I wasn't shrinking. We walked away as my father's voice echoed behind us, shouting accusations, threats, words meant to pull me back into the role I'd outgrown. They didn't work. Not anymore. That night, as I lay awake beside the man who had chosen me, I realized something painful and freeing. Family betrayal hurts, but it also reveals who never had power over you to begin with. I thought the worst was over, but the next morning, my father did something that forced me to choose between justice and mercy.
The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls, all from my father. My phone buzzed again before I could even sit up. I let it ring. For years, I would have answered on the first vibration, heart racing, already apologizing in my head. But that morning felt different, quieter, stronger. My fiancé watched me carefully. "You don't have to pick up." "I know," I said, "but I want to hear what he says when he realizes I'm not afraid anymore." I answered. "What did you do?" my father shouted immediately. I pulled the phone away from my ear, waiting until he ran out of breath. "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. The truth just caught up. "You went behind my back," he snapped. "You brought outsiders into family business." I laughed softly. "You made it legal business the moment you stole from me." Silence. Then his tone shifted, lower, urgent. "You don't understand how this works," he said. "If this goes public, everything collapses." I closed my eyes. Not once did he say sorry. "What do you want?" I asked. He hesitated. "Come home, we'll talk. I'll fix things." Fix things. The same words he used whenever consequences loomed. "I already came home," I replied. "I just didn't stay." His voice hardened. "If you pursue this, your mother will suffer." That did it. The old guilt stirred, but it didn't take hold. "She made her choices," I said quietly, "just like you did." He exhaled sharply. "You'd really destroy your own father?" I thought about the nights I cried alone, the opportunities I never took because I was scared, the way he laughed at my ring. "You destroyed the idea of a father years ago. I'm just protecting myself now." Another pause. Then something unexpected. Fear turned into pleading. "I can transfer some of it back," he said quickly. "Not all, but enough. We'll call it even." Even. My fiancé shook his head slowly. I felt a strange calm wash over me. "No," I said. "This isn't about money anymore." "What do you want?" he demanded. I took a breath. "I want acknowledgement," I said. "Written, signed, that you used my trust without consent. You're asking me to incriminate myself. I'm asking you to take responsibility." He scoffed. "You've changed." "Yes," I said. "That was the point." Hours later, an email arrived. A confession. Half-hearted, carefully worded, but real. My lawyer said it was enough. I stared at the screen for a long time. With one signature, I could press forward. Charges, exposure, consequences. Or I could stop. My fiancé sat beside me. "Whatever you choose, I'm with you." I thought about my grandmother, about the trust meant to protect me, about how power had been used to keep me small. I picked up the pen and made my decision. I thought my choice would end the story, but the moment my father realized what I'd decided, he showed up unannounced and said the one thing I never expected.
I didn't tell my father what I decided. I didn't need to. He showed up anyway. I heard the knock just after sunset, slow, deliberate, heavy with entitlement, the kind of knock that assumes it will be answered. My fiancé looked at me. "Do you want me to handle it?" "No," I said. "This one's mine." When I opened the door, my father stood there without his usual armor. No booming voice, no sharp posture, just a man who had run out of leverage. "You made your point," he said quietly. "Now undo this." I stepped aside but didn't invite him in. "There's nothing to undo," I replied. He looked past me, into the apartment we'd built together. Simple, warm, real. "You think this life will last?" he asked. "Marriages fail, people leave." "Maybe," I said, "but fear already failed, and so did control." He swallowed. "Your mother hasn't slept." I nodded. "Neither did I, for years." He finally looked at my hand. The ring, the same one he laughed at. "You could have chosen differently, family over strangers." I smiled softly. "I chose honesty over harm." His jaw tightened. "So what now?" I took a breath. "I didn't file criminal charges, not yet." Hope flickered in his eyes. "But the trust will be restored, legally, fully, and you'll step away from anything tied to my name." His shoulders sagged. "You're cutting us off." "No," I said gently. "I'm stepping away. There's a difference." He looked older in that moment, smaller. "I raised you," he said weakly. "And I survived you," I replied. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he nodded once. "I suppose this is goodbye." "It's a boundary," I corrected. He turned and walked away without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, shaking, not from fear, but release. Weeks later, the funds were restored, not all the damage undone, but enough for choice, enough for freedom. My mother sent a message, apologetic, confused, wanting peace without accountability. I didn't respond. Some doors don't need slamming, they just need closing. On a quiet morning months later, I stood in front of a mirror fastening that same ring, not because it proved anything, but because it reminded me who I became when I stopped asking for permission. My fiancé kissed my forehead. "Ready?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. "I've been ready my whole life." As we walked forward together, I realized something powerful. The ring my father mocked wasn't a symbol of dependence. It was a promise to never shrink again, to choose love without fear, and to build a family that never confuses control with care. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't destruction, it's freedom.